Huh?
Or, yeah, we could all just shoot each other. Here, have guns. I don't care anymore.
Hi there everyone, Lars back with a review and analysis for The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 6. They've all got guns. Oh boy. This episode was high-flying insanity, and I love how the internet is blowing up with, is this okay to show on television? Well, that's why it's on YouTube.
It's either shoot or get shot.
I think I got Kinger.
Are you sure we're safe up here?
Whoa!
There he is!
I'm right behind you, aren't I?
Whoops, sorry.
So, welcome to my writer's breakdown of The Amazing Digital Circus Episode 6, brought to you by Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors, because writing is an adventure, it's way more fun with friends. Oh boy, this episode was a blast. I really, though, want to focus more on the fantastic world building and character development that we got in this episode, rather than the play-by-play, because holy cow, there was so much going on. The gunslinging was phenomenal. It kept you really on the edge of your seat, and when the show's like, wait, get back into your seat, it's because it wanted you to pay attention to some really important and powerful moments.
The way I see it, relationships are two-sided, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to do all the heavy lifting when the other isn't in the mood. We all go through and deal with things differently, and sometimes you just need to let people do things their own way, as long as you're still there when they need you.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
'Cause it exists. It's a part of you that's real. And the only you that you should care about is the real you.
What would you do if I abstracted tomorrow?
I'd move on. And probably forget about you.
Okay.
So let's get started with what I thought might be one of the most important things, actually two of the most important things to happen in this episode. The first is that Kinger creates this golden little butterfly to heal Ragatha after Jack shot her in the head and Kane refuses to give her a third life once the game gets started. The second big thing is when Jax is talking with Pomni and says, look, if you're going to be realistic about how you handle this gun, it's not going to work the way that you want it to. You need to get into character. You need to let loose. You need to embrace the fact that we are in a cartoon world. And this is accompanied by Pomni being unable to shoot an empty tin can off of a pedestal, even though she's got perfect form with the gun, she's handling it correctly. The only thing that I mark her down for is that she's got her finger on the trigger before she is ready to shoot. Otherwise, everything is a-okay with how she's handling the gun. But the moment she goes for more of a trick shot, and she's actually pointing the gun more towards the ground than she is at the can, she's able to blast it on away because she embraced the silliness and the weirdness of the digital circus. What does all of this mean? Well, let's hop on back to the very first episode of the digital circus, where Kane said that basically anything that you could think of is possible within the circus, other than swearing, or as we find out in this episode, sex.
You really want to know what I want?
Oh no.
I want the ability to have sex.
No way! Are we finally having this conversation?
However, when we think back to all the other episodes that we've seen thus far of the show, it doesn't seem as though your imagination truly sets you free within the digital circus. You're at the whims of whatever Kane decides to create. However, as we see in this episode, which then makes you reflect a little bit more on some of the things that happened in previous episodes, no, within the boundaries of what Kane allows you to do, there is plenty of wiggle room so long as you embrace the role. This begins to make a whole lot more sense of why Kinger is so resilient, because he gets engaged with every single game and adventure. He's going insane because of everything that's happened to him in the past and because of how long he's been in the circus, but he's not abstracted because he gets fully committed to every single bit. As a result of that, he is, in a way, way more powerful than anyone else. So much so that, should he desire it, he can create smaller items to the benefit of his friends. And as Jack shows Pomni, if you're willing to embrace the silliness, you can start pulling off really crazy cool moves. Kinger and Pomni both do this. Kinger with creating a whole ricochet effect where he's trying to take out Jax and Pomni with just one bullet. He fails because he accidentally hits himself, but Pomni recreates that exact same thing that she saw using what Kinger did and Jax's explanation to then take out all of Zooble's guns and knock them onto their rear, so that way she and Jax can take out Zooble and thereby win the game.
Bullshit. Ow! Well, shit, man. Guess that's the end of that. See you on the flip side.
This is a huge deal because what it ultimately means is that the cast within the circus, should they put their minds to it and embrace something that they've been trying to avoid this whole time, they can become actually really powerful. Power players against Kane, but even more importantly, against the system that is holding them trapped there. Imagine if they completely embraced all of the silliness and zaniness and danger of the circus, while at the same time being very inventive and creative. They might just be able to create their very own exit door, or create a way to find the exit door, or put Kane into a point of submission where he's like, fine, you know what? You can go back to the liminal space that I was working on and then see where that takes you. Go out into the void and embrace just the full raw potential of that space and maybe create a way out. I mean, I'm totally shooting from the hip right here, but ultimately now, almost anything is possible if the cast puts their minds to it. However, this means that they are going to have to properly communicate with each other, which by the end of this episode is still a very big problem, though we do get to see some strong relationships now coming to the forefront. And one of the big ones, and one of the most touching, is Gangle and Zooble. The conversation that the two of them have while hiding away from Jax, Kinger, Pomni, and Ragatha is a really awesome moment. It's awesome because we need Gangle to have this opportunity to express herself, to confront the depression that she's experiencing, as well as all of the trauma that she's undergone within the circus, especially at the hands of Jax. It's very clearly laid out for all of us that one of the things that's kept Gangle from really becoming who she wants to be, especially within the circus, is how she's been tormented by Jax, how she's allowed for it to happen. Combine that with her own sense of depression and self-loathing, holy cow, you have this awful recipe where it makes sense that she was so close to abstracting back in episode 4. And what I really love about the end of the conversation is how Zooble answers her question by saying, look, you need to accept who you are and love who you are. And that doesn't necessarily feel like a very natural thing to do, especially when you realize that there's things about yourself that you wish you could change. Maybe some things you can change, other things you can't. Depression is not something that you can just simply put on a shelf and forget about. No, it sticks with you. But if you can learn to love yourself for who you are, and then learn to better yourself from that point on, you can become a very healthy and inwardly beautiful and amazing person. And that's something that's very difficult for Gangle to accept, but she's willing to take the chance, try it a little bit. To which then she asks Zooble, have you yourself ever done that? And the expression that we get on the mismatched Zooble is very clear that no, Zooble has actually not gotten to that point. And I really love the dynamic that we're seeing here, and that Zooble is confessing something. Their advice to Gangle is what they themselves wish they could do. Zooble's problem is that they feel incomplete. Something is missing. And yes, it is a dysphoria that they are going through. It is an existential crisis, not something that can just be easily fixed. There's no one part or no one conversation that can be had or given to them that will magically fix what they are going through. Absolutely not. And we get some hints from the previous episode that Zooble's gone from job to job to job, trying to figure out what best fits for them, and nothing has quite stuck yet. And so Zooble's in a situation where they wish that they can just love and accept themselves for who they are, but they haven't gotten there yet. And I absolutely love how honest this conversation is to the audience. Because how many of us have been in that situation before? How many of us have been asked by a friend or by a family member, by a loved one, a partner, who's like, hey, what do you do in this kind of a situation? And you are like inwardly like, oh my gosh, I don't have a good answer because I myself am actually struggling with X and Y issues, and yikes, what do I say? And so you end up saying what you wish for yourself, what you hope you yourself could do. That's what we're seeing right here with Zooble and with Gangle. It's a very raw, honest moment with some excellent advice, because you do need to accept yourself. You do need to love yourself. Yes, you do need to also focus on helping yourself move forward, but that's only made so much easier if you come to accept yourself. If you love yourself enough to change what you can, accept what you can't, and then accommodate around that and build up healthy, positive relationships that build you up in the process. And what's great in this episode is that the other two monumental conversations are a reflection of what Zooble and Gangle talk about. When we hop on over to Ragatha and to Kinger, it's very much the same thing. Kinger gets very much to the heart of the issue. Ragatha, do you hate yourself? Because at the heart of it all, with Ragatha pretty much outs herself, how she utilizes all kinds of tricks to try to get people to open up to her. Why? Because she wants people to appreciate her and love her. She feels that if they don't, that they secretly hate her. And the reason why she feels that way is because, well, she doesn't like herself. So she's hoping to compensate for that by receiving love from everyone else. And Kinger, in his own way and from his own angle, is like, look, you need to take care of yourself. You need to love yourself. And understand this, that when someone distances themselves from you, it's not necessarily a sign that they no longer like you. Because, well, relationships are two-way streets. People need to go into it together. Sometimes you're lifting 80% or 20% of the relationship. Sometimes you're going 50%. Sometimes you're going 100%. And you know what? Sometimes the other person is giving 100% as well. That's the best kind of relationship. Other times they meet you in the middle. Sometimes while you're taking 20%, they're doing 80% of the lifting. Sometimes when you're doing 80% of the lifting, they're only doing 5%. And if that's the case, that doesn't mean that your relationship is destroyed. It doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, it's so awful and they now hate me. Sometimes that just means that at that particular time, the person's not able to give everything that you hope that they would give. If you love someone, you take them as they are day by day, at their best and at their worst. And sometimes you need just to give someone their space. So for Ragatha, she doesn't need to worry if whether or not Pomni loves her or hates her. It's more about about Ragatha? Do you love yourself? And are you willing to work on your relationship with Pomni, on your relationship with me, Kinger, on a relationship with Gangle and with Zooble, and even with Jax? Because, oh boy, does Jax need it.
Here we go! Because I didn't fight back, that means I secretly care about you? I'm just a misunderstood little chicken fetus in an egg that needs to be cracked open. Well, I am not. I do not care about you or anyone else in this circus in the slightest. You are my playthings, and I get joy out of making you suffer. I'm the one who causes pain for fun. If I led you on, it was just to make this part hurt you more. God, you look stupid.
The two conversations that Jax has with Pomni are incredibly telling about him, how he's been coping with the digital circus, and it's by no means healthy in any kind of way. Him talking about just giving yourself into the bit, embracing your archetype, embrace the weirdness of the circus, embrace the fact that you're now just a cartoon character, is not a way for him to access greater amazing powers that will allow him to escape the digital circus. Not in the slightest. By him talking about these things, what he's really saying is, do not accept what horrible things you might have done to other people and what is secretly really happening to you. He is in absolute denial, and he hopes that by being in denial, he can save himself from, well, everything that's been happening to him and what he himself is responsible for. Is he responsible for what happened to Ribbit and them abstracting? Maybe. We don't yet know. We've gotten some hints from Gooseworx that might be the case. Did Jax also play a part in what happened to Kaufmo? Well, we get basically told yes, as well as what everyone else did to the poor clown. And so, while everyone else is like grieving, oh my gosh, this is so sad, Jax is all like, no. Because if we give into that, if we give into the realities of what's happening right here, we accept that we're mortal, and we're accepting the very real dangers that we'll abstract, and I do not want that to happen. On top of that, he's running away from whatever guilt he's going through. Jax is just a horrible bundle of so much negativity that's going on, and what he's attempted to do is to cancel out that negativity with another kind of negativity. And it's brilliant writing what Gooseworx has done right here, because he's taken laughter. Laughter is medicine for the soul. People laugh in horrible situations to cope with what's going on. What Jax has done is he's taken laughter and entertainment and fun, and he's twisted into something perverse in order to cancel out the negativity that he feels by heaping negativity onto other people. And that's how he's trying to cope. And when his coping mechanism doesn't work, he immediately goes into denial and tries to fall back on nothing matters because we're in a cartoon world. Okay, everyone, just laugh. Just embrace your archetype. My archetype is the funny guy. And that all begins cracking when Pomni refuses to laugh and play along. And as opposed to the other characters who are just like, oh, Jax is the worst, and they try to distance themselves from him, Pomni is trying to get closer. And this starts cracking him immediately. His whole revelation of, I'm the bad guy. I love to torture you people. You are just my toys I love to hurt. I've been stringing you along for the hurt because it's so funny. So many fans immediately flew into a tizzy because like, oh my gosh, Jax is the bad guy. And Jax is most definitely not a good guy, especially in the situation. But if you're paying attention to what he's saying, and especially upon rewatch, you realize he's not so much trying to convince Pomni as he's trying to convince himself.
There's nothing more to me. So please, just stop looking.
And to open up a little bit right here, to be honest and raw with you guys, because this is a very honest and raw episode. Young teenage angsty Lars would have absolutely loved and misunderstood Jax. He would have identified with Jax in all the wrong ways because, well, angsty younger teenage me basically had similar ideas and viewpoints as Jax. And no, it wasn't great. Something that I'm still very much like, ooh, I feel the cringe, I feel the shame from that. And when I saw Jax trying to convince Pomni of that fact that he was the bad guy, don't look any further, I realized he's lying. This is all a front. He's trying to convince himself that he's the bad guy, that he can't be redeemed. The very end, when he says there's nothing more to me, so don't look further, that's almost verbatim stuff that I said to people who tried to reach out and help me back in high school. And man, oh man, yeah, I was very much Jax in so many ways. How do you break out of something like that? You basically need your own existential crisis that makes you confront the reality of who you are and the world and the setting that you live in, and come to realize that, you know what, life is way better when you are accepted by people who want to positively build you up, like Pomni. When you realize that, you know what, you can't just hide behind this facade forever, because you're not being yourself, and when you're not being yourself, you're not okay. You're not actually happy. Fulfillment, happiness, personal progression come from embracing who you are. Coming back to what Zooble said, that you need to accept who you are and love who you are. And then from there, you can start improving and growing and building the relationships that will positively influence you going forward in your life. Now, while the show doesn't necessarily say that by the end, that's something for the audience to think about. When you look at these characters and you think about what they're going through, it should be a moment for self-reflection upon you, the viewer, to be like, where do I sit in all of this? As someone who, like Gangle, has gone through serious bouts of depression and self-loathing, someone like Jax who's lived in denial and tried to convince other people of a persona that wasn't really me, and sometimes like Ragatha, wondering if people didn't love me because they weren't spending as much time with me. Oh my gosh! I have been in all of those situations to one extent or another. And when I think about where I have gone as a person, how I have coped, how I have grown, it helps me to see what these characters really need. And that leads me to think about Pomni, who's just an absolute saint and rock in this episode. If Pomni from episodes 1 and 2 had been placed into the situation, she might have absolutely broken by the end of the conversation with Jax and have shot him, or possibly shot herself. Yikes! But thanks to what Kinger told her back in episode 3 about the relationships that you need to build with other people, she went out of her way to try to build something positive with Jax. Because, especially going back to episode 5, she saw chinks in his armor. She saw a real guy. Someone who, yeah, is a jerk, but can sometimes be fun, can even be considerate and insightful. And if you could bring that on out, there's no telling what kind of good Jax could actually bring to the circus, believe it or not. Pomni tried to go that particular route because, as Pomni has seen, since the end of episode 3, from episode 3 to episode 4 to episode 5, building good positive relationships with other characters allows her to be truly grounded and find her sanity in the worst of situations. That even if it doesn't present a solution to getting out of the circus, it allows her to be resilient within the circus until a solution can be found, which again, this episode finally began to present the building blocks to them getting their freedom. And so, altogether, we've gotten some really great character progression and some great character regression on the part of Jax as he refuses Pomni's help and continues to be in denial and just go down a very destructive path that's been leading him right to nearly abstracting. We all thought that by the end of episode 5 that Ragatha was going to probably be the one to abstract, but no, that doesn't quite seem to be the case. However, by the end of this episode, it's very clear that Ragatha, Gangle, even Zooble, but especially Jax, are all in situations where the circus can still get to them and drive them to the point of absolute mentally breaking down. And while some people might say that there's death flags flying over Kinger, well, Kinger is pretty resilient, and especially as we got in this episode, he absolutely commits. He is intelligent, he's willing to go whole hog, and he has some tricks up his sleeve, and the team is going to need all of that in order to get through, well, whatever the next 3 episodes have to offer before we get to the conclusion of the amazing digital circus. Now, before I close out this video, what are some bits of writing advice that I can get out of, well, what we got from this episode? I would highly recommend going back to our live stream where I went over all of the amazing things that happened in this episode in real time, talking about it for over 2 hours. There was a whole lot to talk about in terms of realism, how to handle weapons, how things were presented, world building, and the likes. I think that the best writing advice that I can put into this video that follows through with the spirit of everything that I've been talking about is this: writing realistic characters. Writing realistic characters doesn't necessarily mean becoming overly mature and gratuitous in terms of violence and sex and stuff like that. While we definitely got a lot of that in this episode, all of that was more superfluous in comparison to the honest conversations that the different teams had, where people opened up. And that is what's very important to writing realistic and believable, relatable characters, is that they open up and reveal really who they are. And what I enjoyed, especially in this episode, is that rather than talking in hallways or talking over coffee, which is what people love to say about modern shows, that's like, oh, it's all about the feelings, all about the feelings. I don't want to spend all this time talking about feelings. I want the action. Well, you know what? You need the feelings to balance out the action to show that characters are truly growing and progressing. And while Zooble and Gangle and Kinger and Ragatha's conversations need them to actually be sitting down and having an honest heart-to-heart in an environment where they don't have to worry about Jax crashing their conversation, the conversations between Jax and Pomni are actually very active, as they are working with guns, as they're pulling off incredible trick shots, as they are actually fighting, throwing punches, choking each other, doing all kinds of horrible things. And you get the action that helps to emphasize the words that are being shared. Excellent dialogue is not just characters sitting around talking, though sometimes you absolutely need that. Sometimes that's what the scene calls for, and that's absolutely fine. Do not be afraid of that. But the best kind of open, honest conversations happen when characters are doing something. Like what we got in episode 5, where characters are sharing a drink at a bar, where characters are looking up at the stars and talking things over, or they are throwing fists at each other. Having action to help emphasize the words that are being said, or to give flavor to the setting and the scenario, having that action really helps to emphasize the emotions that are going into those words, make them more memorable to the audience. Because as I've seen from all of the fans thus far, everyone's talking about Pomni and Jax's conversations, and for good reason. It's the most actionable. But we also got excellent character development and great dialogue coming in the other 2 scenes between the other teams. Do not discount the power of those scenes and the power of characters having a moment to sit down, breathe, and talk. So, with all that being said, that is my general breakdown and analysis for this episode. Oh boy, I know that there's a whole lot more to talk about, and I definitely want to talk about all of that in upcoming videos and in other live streams. So if you want to be there for that, then please make sure that you are subscribed to our channel, that you've clicked the bell icon to receive notifications for when those videos premiere. And if you would especially like to support the work that we do here, please check out the books that we've published. Links for all of them are in the description below. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Oh, wait, I misread that. It's Ming.
You shouldn't have assumed you won the award. Now we both look foolish.